Hello, welcome to another video on my attempt to get to 2400. I am going to try playing some Blitz games in this video with the maximum time limit for Blitz matches. Although there is an interesting classical match which has just come up, 2100 rated player, 15 plus 15. If I don't... Oh, okay, they seem to have been picked, possibly. Okay, alright, so it will definitely be Blitz then. I was thinking that if I didn't get any takers in the next few minutes, I would possibly do a classical game. In the last video I did, I got to about a third of the way to 2400 across the board on average. My rapid is now just over 2450, and my classical and Blitz ratings are about 2330. So if I can get to 2350, that would be halfway across the board if I can do it in rapid, in a Blitz and classical to catch up with my rapid. All right, great. I've got a game. Again, I'm only really playing 2000s and plus. This person's closest to 2100, so that means they're usually quite a good player. They've done e6. If I go e4, it's a French. I don't really feel like doing that, so I'll do c4. They may be doing Simon Williams' idea of playing f5 later to avoid me playing bishop g5, but they haven't. They've done a kind of Queen's Indian structure. Bishop b7, I'm guessing. All right, I'll play knight c3, see what they do. They can do f5 here, but bishop b4 is an alternative line, a little bit like a Nimzo Indian. I've actually played this line as black a fair few times, and if white overextends and plays e4 too early, things can get very ugly for white. I've actually drawn with a couple of IMs in this line as black. I think I beat an IM in the London Chess Classic in 2019. In this system, I turned up an hour late for the game, but somehow won it. I wasn't as black. I wasn't entirely outplaying him. I was just sort of a bit lucky, really. Right, so they've traded their light squared bishop off, and they're also trading another piece off. I think this is mostly an attempt to try and close the center, and then their two knights may not be so bad. It's a little bit suspicious though, because it does release the tension. Now they're charging the h-pawn up. Interesting idea. That weakens g5, so I think I can pin them. Simple move to pin. I did have the idea of playing bishop a3 to prevent d5, and then they can't castle. But I think this is also good. It stops h4 being so good for them. Now I could do e4, or maybe like rook e1 or something. There is also bishop f4, which is quite a funny move, attacking the queen, trying to pressurize. Yeah, let's do e4. I mean, bishop f4 may be stronger, but I quite like this move because it attacks h5, so I could maybe trade off the bishop for the knight, then take on h5. Black's really struggling here, I think. Their knight on b8 can't really go anywhere useful. They probably shouldn't castle. And I've got the center as well. So unless I somehow mess up and completely close the game up, and then their knights come in and I end up losing, which I doubt will happen, I think I've definitely got a really big advantage here. As they're thinking, that's good. We're similar on time. I'm ahead by a very small amount, so the clock is not yet coming into play. I definitely think I've outplayed them here, or they've sort of outplayed themselves by giving the bishop pair and allowing me to get a strong centre. It's hard to know what black can do here. Maybe I don't know, d5 feels wrong, because I've got so many things attacking it. I can get rid of their knight before I capture on d5 as well, and it opens up the centre when their king is still uncastled, so rook e1 could be useful in a couple of turns. Knight h7, they don't want to trade pieces. I think now I'm going to do bishop f4, gain to tempo on their queen, and it attacks the h5 pawn. I think, yeah, d6 looks like it makes sense. Bishop takes h5 is the simple move. I think. C5's interesting though, trying to win a pawn. I prefer this move. It definitely discourages castling. It doesn't open the h-file for their rook, just in case they get some big attack. And I think I'm winning d6. Yeah, so they've gone e5, which at first looks like they're in the clear, but I take d6 first. Then if they take me back, I will then do bishop takes e5, which is what I'm doing. So I have won a pawn. I'm hitting g7 as well, so they've played queen g6. This allows me to win another tempo. I am opening up the h-file for their rook, but I think the 2 pawns is worth it. Queen to e6. I'm going to do what Smyslov used to do, just take material as long as there's no tactic. I have to be a little bit careful here. Bishop e5 appears to me to be the simple move. Nice and easy. I don't need to overly complicate the matter. Yeah, knight d7. That's what I suspected. Bishop f4 I'm sure is fine. I don't see anything wrong with it, so bishop f4. Keeping my bishop pair, and it's a pawn sack, sort of. If they took my pawn, rook e1 would line up with their king and their queen, and they would be losing. Now, queen a4, running over to the queen side, is what I'm thinking of. Maybe I have to be a bit careful of bishop f3, but to be honest, it's a blitz game, so I don't want to be, spending too much time analysing here. I'm going to go with my instinct. Queen a4 looked good. Now I need to open up their king, so bishop f3 with the idea d5 looks quite good. There's also rook d1. Maybe I can do d5 straight away, but I don't really want to jeopardize my chances. I'm going to keep the pawn, and d5 break is occurring next. Bishop's lining up with their king, and also it's a safety move, just in case I ever get mated or something horrible happens to me. There's bishop g2, which is safe. I could also just take the knight, then play d5. Yeah, I'm going to take the knight. Again, I'm just playing it safe. I am losing my bishop pair, but now I gain initiative on their king. They've got not enough pieces to attack me. That knight might have come to h3 with check, and it could have been annoying. So this move minimises my chance of losing, maximises the chance of me coasting to victory. Alright, there's not really much to think about here. Pawn takes pawn. Potentially going d6 check or queen c6 check next turn. So if queen d6, queen c6, queen takes queen, pawn takes queen check, forking their king and knight. Queen h6, perfect. Okay, simple moves. Simple, simple, simple. And I suspect they will resign around now. And they have. So that was a good game, I think. I liked that. I'm going to see if I can get a new opponent just for variety's sake. Again, I've set the limit at 2,000, so I won't play anybody below that rating. Ideally, I'd want to play someone about my own rating, roughly 23, 2400, maybe 2250, and that would allow me to actually gain some rating points. There is somebody who's offered a match at 4+2, but I think that is still a bit too quick for me. I think 5+3, play 5+2 is like the kind of slowest, quickest, I should say, match I would be willing to do. And 5-4 is the slowest blitz game. Right, I'll give it another minute or two, and I'll switch to trying to play maybe one classical game if I still can't get a blitz game. Perfect, I appear to have got an opponent who's exactly 2,000. So I'm going to gain about 1 point by winning, but never mind. They've chosen Sicilian. Maybe it's time to do something interesting. Let's do the Smith-Morra. d4. They take, then after c3, if black takes it, white gets a loss of initiative for the pawn. Pawn d3 is what I do as black, because it limits white's activity, and black can then spend a bit of time redeploying their pieces. Now, knight f6 going into the Alapin if I go e5. I've never worked out really if there's an alternative move. I shouldn't really try to work it out over the board. There is bishop d3, but I'm not a huge fan of that move. Queen d3 just looks ridiculous. I think I have to go to e5 here. I can't think of an alternative. So e5, knight d5. Now, it may not be the move that is actually best suiting me, but I always play knight f3 because it appears to give me more options. And black almost always goes knight c6. If they take the pawn, I would take their knight, which would be very, very good for me. Now, bishop c4 is a good move here because it does offer the pawn to black on c3. So I'm going to do this. Knight b6, bishop b3, and then they can take. That's what I'm hoping they do. They've gone knight c7. Wow, I haven't seen that move for ever, I don't think. Some lines in the Alekhine do this. I don't know if I can legitimately keep offering that pawn. They're going to go d5 fairly soon. Maybe I castle, and then they go d5 anyway. Alright, let's do it one more time. Let's castle. And if they go d5, I can take on Basson, then take on d4 anyway. If they take on c3, perfect. They've gone d6. That looks like a very reasonable move. I could take on d6. Could take on d4. I don't know which one's better. If I take on d4, they could go d5, and then it might close the game up too much. So I am going to do this. I get an isolated pawn, which is a weakness. However, I've got better development, so I think overall I should be in a generally good position here. My activity makes up for the slight weakening of my pawn structure. Bishop e7, yeah, that's what I expected. I should probably continue with my aggression. Rook e1 looks like a reasonable idea here. Knight e4 was also a possibility, but I wasn't totally sure if I should do that. I was going to do bishop g5, but then I lose d4. d5, I don't know, it looks a bit odd. d5, I take with the knight. They take, I take with the knight. They take with their knight. I do queen takes. And I don't know, maybe. I think that I don't quite have enough for the attack, so I may as well get rid of my one weakness. Do this. Then I don't really want to take with the bishop because rook d8 could be annoying. So I'm going to take with the queen. If they trade queens, I assume that I'm maybe a tiny bit better because I've got more pieces active. But it's very, very close. I would guess it's like 0.2 or something for white. Yeah, bishop f6 is a good move, getting their bishop out of the way. Now, I'm wondering if I give up the b-pawn. Because my bishop has to move at some stage. So do I do bishop f4, bishop takes b2, rook b1, bishop back to f6. And I was looking at stuff like bishop d6, trying to gain any advantage. I may as well try it. There's also bishop g5, which might be good. I'm not actually sure which one to do. Maybe there's very little difference, but it's an interesting move. It would stop bishop f6. That's the one thing going for me. Nah, bishop f4 looks more fun. So I am gambiting the pawn, or sacrificing it, or losing it, whatever terminology you want to use. But I do gain some compensation, I think. Probably not a lot, but I need to activate pieces. They have not taken the bait. I was afraid of that. I could take their knight and make their pawns a bit weak. I'm not sure if that's any good, though. Rook c1 doesn't do a lot. Thing is that I can't go rook b1 now because that bishop f5 move. So I either take their knight, go knight e5 now, or go rook e2 would be my guess. Alright, I'm losing the bishop pair in an open position, but I am planning to trade bishops next turn. Like this, bishop e5. So if one set of bishops is traded off, then their bishop pair is eliminated, and it's just a case of knight versus bishop. Their bishop may be a bit stronger than my knight in most scenarios, but because of their weak pawns on A and C files, I think it's dynamically equal. Okay, they've taken me. I probably should take with the knight, because knights are strongest in the centre. That's the most important piece to have in the centre, because they're short-range pieces. Most of the other pieces are long range. Rook's there. I should probably... Could do a rook lift, rook e3. Rook c1 looks interesting. It's pawn b4 as well to try and trades off, doesn't it? Yeah, I like rook c1. Rooks to open files. It needs to be done. They're probably going to go c5 here. That would be my guess. And then maybe b3 just to hold the pawn and stop it pushing any further. And I am putting my pawns on squares which could be attacked by their bishop, but there's no... I don't see a good way for black to actually target the pawns with their bishop. The only one that's weak is a2, and it's very difficult to find a way to go after it. My eventual plan, again, they are targeting the pawns anyway, but my plan is actually to double up the rooks on the c-file. Potentially I could also play things like pawn f4 and then king f2, walking the king in. To me this looks like a simpler plan. And I am down a bit on time. I've got about a minute and a half less than my opponent does. But this is an ending, so I'm not terribly upset with this. I don't think that I'll go really low on time, because the positions aren't too complicated. Alright, double up the rooks. I'm assuming they'll double their rook. Actually, I guess they could go rook d8. No, they haven't. Alright, let's target the pawn, not with the knight. There's no back rank, I don't think. I have enough pieces on c5. They're going to push c4. That makes perfect sense. Now, I'm wondering if I take... I probably shouldn't. Maybe I should go after their bishop now. And then, you know, if they move their bishop away, I win the pawn. So they're going to have to give their bishop for my knight and then weaken themselves. I have to be a little bit nervous about takes b3, though. I didn't look at this. I think I'm winning, though, because they can't sacrifice their rook to get a pawn to the end, because I always have just enough time to catch it. I think I'm winning a pawn. When I went to c4, I had originally thought taking, but I then realised that it would trade off a set of pawns and it would open the game up even more. So this knight f4 I think is a good move. Depends what black plays here. I don't think they can save the pawn, so they may play king f8, or possibly even bishop somewhere, like d7, in order to keep their better minor piece. And then they would have some compensation for the pawn. My plan is to try and trade off everything, though, because I am a pawn up. So rook takes c4, for example, then just trade all the rooks off. Ideally, go into a king and pawn ending with an extra pawn, and it's then like a 99% chance I win. Okay, and they're losing all the time that they were ahead by. That's good for me. I'm definitely pleased to see this. Still considering their options. There aren't a lot of good moves for black. I don't really see a way to get lots of counterplay in this position. Possibly something like rook d8, and then going into a single rook and pawn ending is black's best chance. But they've got so many weaknesses, and I will have potentially a passed pawn if I take with the b pawn. So I don't think that there's a whole lot here for black. I definitely wouldn't resign, but I would be a lot worse. Yeah, bishop d7 looks like the reasonable move. Now, rook takes pawn looks very, very natural. Oh wait, did I miss something? Oh, so stupid. I just missed something. I could have played knight d5 just then, hit the rook, and then go on knight e7. So silly. Alright, never mind. Which one do I take with? Again, I want to trade everything. So normally I would maybe take with a pawn in a regular game, but I'm hoping they just take me, and they haven't. Alright, come on, pin and win. It must be correct. They're going to do something like king f8. Now, what I want to do is play knight d3 to c5, and then I can trade off everything. That's the plan, anyway. Oh, they're trying to do the old checkmate plan. So pawn f3, Just be careful. I don't need to do anything silly in this position. Yeah, bishop f5. Okay, so they've escaped my attempt at trading pieces. Good on them. King f2. So I'm preventing their rook coming to the e file. They can't ever play rook e2 or what have you. Now, this move, can I go rook d5? Yeah, it may not be the correct move, but it's definitely the easiest. I'm skewering the bishop and pawn, so their best option, I think, is to take my knight, or to play something like bishop e6. Actually, no, I'd trade off, wouldn't I? Bishop c8 is the only bishop move apart from bishop b1, which they've played. Now, gain a tempo with rook takes pawn, and now I think, ooh, I was going to say rook to a5, but they have decided to let their king be a bit weak. I don't see how to checkmate them on f7 with the rook, though, so I am going to play rook a5. Again, simple moves. Doesn't need to be overly complicated. Both down to about a minute and a half, so I need to pick up the pace a little bit. Oh, okay, or they can resign. That's the simpler way to play. Alright, okay, great, fantastic. I can still gain 2 points. Ideally, I'd like to play one more game and actually gain more than 2 points in a match. But if I don't, never mind. Thought I played reasonably well there. I did miss that knight d5 move, though. Alright, I'm playing it. Oh, good, 2165. That's the kind of player I want. Not quite as high raced as I'd like, but it's still a lot better than 2000. There seems to be a huge gulf in ability, at least on live chess, and I think in real chess, between like 2000s and 2150s, 2200s. Not entirely sure why that seems to be the cutoff, at least in the UK, but I have experienced that. Right, we appear to be going into an English symmetrical. I'll see what black does. They could go e6. No, they're going g6. Alright. Okay, I know the theory relatively well here. This is basically mainline theory. Now, if I castle, they go d5, so I need to be the one pushing in the centre first. They take me, yes, I take them. Now, I'm really hoping they castle, because I've got this new move, and here it is. So my new move is c5. This is not recommended by any grandmasters that I know of, or any books that I know of, but I really like this this setup that I get. It's very, very hard for black to push d6 now, and I get the dark square control. It's not actually like amazing, you know. My position is, you know, slightly better for white usually, I think. But it's not easy for black to play. I think when I've researched this on a computer, it's like minus 0.1 or something if they go knight g4, which is not an easy move to find over the board. Ideally, in over-the-board matches in real rated FIDE classical tournaments, I normally castle here, and then if they go a6, which is a move, I then go c5. But this is still fun. And after knight g4, I just go knight b3 normally. So I'm defending c5. They then can't go d6 without isolating their pawn on d6 because I take it twice. And it's definitely not the expected move. And I think there is a move that's like dead level if they play knight to e4, but I don't really think that move is that good. They have gone knight g4. Okay, so knight b3. Nice and simple. It stops queen a5 as well, which is a way for black to try and win the pawn. But yeah, after knight e4, I think there's a lot of trading, and it's essentially equal in those positions. But again, you know, you're not worse if you do this as white. Now a5. I haven't actually seen that move before. The idea is to go a4. I think kick my knight away and then cause me problems. I don't see why knight a4 doesn't do stuff with knight b6. Bishop pair? It's an interesting move. I could always castle, though. That's an alternative. But I do feel like I'm getting kicked around too much after a4. So I'm going to play knight a4 to give myself knight b6 to get the bishop pair off of black. That gives me a long-term, small advantage, very, very small plus. Now, if they go d6, I think I can still go knight b6, and if they take me on c5, I can always take back with the knight after I trade the queens and get the bishop pair. So again, it's essentially an equal position, but I do like the long-term prospects for white more than I do black. Right, what would they do here? d5 is an interesting move. That would sack the pawn temporarily, but it would open up the game. d6 is probably what they'll do, though, I think. Oh, knight to e5, yeah, that's definitely also a candidate move. Now, knight b6 looks pretty solid. Do I need to do it yet, though? I don't need to. Maybe I should castle. Yeah, let's just play simple. Nice, easy move. Castling. The centre could open in the next couple of moves, so I need to get my king to a safe place. Black is now way behind on time because of my novelty with c5. And my next idea might be to go like bishop f4, bishop g5, that sort of thing. Because I can play knight b6 at any time, but I haven't yet fully developed my other pieces. Therefore, I should probably do that first in order to not weaken myself too much or lose too many developing moves. And I could always change my mind and play knight on a4 back to c3 if the situation changes. That way I keep myself more flexible by developing everything. Black is still thinking. It's very hard for them to get their c8 bishop out. Again, a d5, yeah. So now, do I take it or do I take it? Taking on d5 looks like some sort of trap. Why would they give me the pawn? But then again, they have to get the bishop out. I don't see what they do after I take them. So I should probably try and trade queens and play simple. Like this. Pre-move queen takes queen, bishop takes queen. Oh, bishop e6, yes. Alright, so if I trade the queens, they take with maybe the f rook? I don't know. Maybe, yeah, the f rook looks best, I would guess. Yeah, I don't think I'm like way behind, so I may as well attack stuff. Potentially trade off more pieces. I'm a pawn up. b2 is actually protected by my a4 knight, another useful aspect of my knight on the rim. My next idea, as I've connected the rooks, is to try and activate them. So rook d1 looks like a no-brainer. Put rooks on the open files, challenge their rook, ideally trade everything and win them with the pawn. They're also down to half my time. Knight c4, definitely. Now, that knight is very annoying, so I think I'm going to offer the trade of knights and hit their rook. My knight on the rim was dim, was grim, was terrible. So I don't care if they take me, I will take them back. Now, I am losing b2, so I am losing the pawn advantage that I have. Rook b1 or rook d1? I don't really need to think too long on this. Yeah, let's go rook b1. It looks easier. Kick their bishop away. And what I've got is a plan. I wonder if you can see what I'm planning to do next. Let's say they go bishop g7. What would you do as white? Oh, that's pretty close. So what would you play? I'll give you 10 seconds before I play the move. Alright, I have a b pawn. I want to make it a passer. Give my bishop pair. Bishop pairs are not everything, because now b7, my f4 bishop is hitting the promotion square. What's even more evil is that if they go rook b8, which I wouldn't be surprised at, on a to b8, I could even go knight c5 here, and then try and take their first rook and go knight a6, which would win even more. So I am going to do that now. Actually, I could go knight takes a5 as well. Actually, no. I'm going to play simple. I'm going to take it off first, then play knight c5. So knight takes a5 is okay, but they have bishop d5, bishop d7, and I can't get to c6. This gives me a6 and d7, which is where my knight's going to strike next. If bishop f5, I don't care about my b1 rook, because I can reinforce it with the f rook. I'll play knight a6. Then they'll take my rook, I'll take their rook. Then their b8 rook will still be hanging. So they resigned. I'm going to quickly look at that game. I haven't done it yet so far, so I can quickly finish off the video with some analysis. It's only a 21 move game, so it doesn't look like it will be the longest analysis session. My guess is that I played fairly well, but I probably did make a few inaccuracies along the way. Right, start from the beginning. I played knight f3 to keep going into a reti. Generally, I play e4, c4, d4. But occasionally I mix it up with a reti, or very rarely I do like b3 or f4. I like having lots of openings at my disposal. That way I can effectively mix up my openings, and when I'm playing in a real big tournament, it will stop people preparing for me as much, or if they do, they could be wasting their time with a loss of the moves. So very, very quickly before I go through it, yeah, I had a 17 centre pawn loss, which is not not perfect, but it's definitely very good. I think the reason it's quite low is that I basically played the first sort of 10 moves or so, which are all in the top, say, 2 or 3 moves on the sort of opening theory, and the rest of it, a lot of my moves, I think, were fairly straightforward, so it wasn't really too hard to win this game, really, because they seem to make a few errors. So this is all theory. Bishop g2, symmetrical English, d4, takes. White has a slight centre advantage with their knight on d4. They've got a bit more space. Both of us can castle. Probably castling is best for me here, then c5, but I chose this. Yeah, knight g4, knight b3, a5. Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure knight a4 is the best move for me, but I think it made sense to play this, because if I go pawn a4, I do somewhat weaken c5. I can never play pawn b4 to protect it, so I'm going to constantly have a piece protecting c5, which could be annoying. So with knight to a4, I leave open the possibility of playing a3, b4 in the future, and also this knight b6 idea, getting the bishop pair. Wow, it likes d5 for black. Yeah, makes sense actually. Yeah, just to gambit the pawn there before I've castled, and then try to do stuff. But d5 looks very very brave, and it apparently says my best move is c takes. I'm assuming that if I take on d5, maybe they trade queens and then go rook d8. I don't know, I definitely give the advantage to white, really. I'm not sure that d5 is that good. Yeah, I think d6 would have been better. Alright, so castling for me is not the best move. That's my inaccuracy. f4 is best. I don't really like playing f4 in these positions, because it does somewhat weaken my protection of the king. But I guess because queen b6 is never going to be a move that they can play, and the fact I can follow up with e4, I suppose I was misplaced in my suspicion of f4. And I guess, yeah, f4 then e4 then bishop e3 would be better in gaining space. So they go to d5, and my moves I think are fairly simple, just trade pieces and win a pawn. Bishop f4, knight c4. So knight b6 is actually one of my best moves. I didn't really like the pressure that black was putting on my position, and I thought my worst piece was the knight, so the trade to me made sense. And with rook a6, that move looks very bizarre. Apparently it's black's best option, and again, simple chess. Just develop your worst pieces, i.e. at this moment the rooks, put them on open files. Okay, black wins a pawn, but then you still put them under pressure. Knight d2 is quite a nice move, because if they take on e2, then takes on b7 could potentially be dangerous for black. Their king is a bit weak actually, with rook b8 potentially being available in the next few moves. Rook b6 is also a plan, which would trade off rooks and then have a passed pawn on b6, just like in the game, which is almost unstoppable. So it suggests bishop takes knight, giving the bishop pair away, then defending their b pawn, And bishop c3, yeah, so I'm threatening bishop takes knight, pawn takes, rook b8 mate. Black has to play very carefully in that line. I suspect it's maybe just about holdable for black, but it's very difficult to play practically. Alright, so their knight b6 was an error because of my bishop takes c6 plan. Apparently bishop d5 is the best move to prevent that. And then, okay, I don't win the bishop pair off them, I don't get to keep my g2 bishop, but I get to pressure them again on b7. And it still looks like black is having a very tough time. Oh, rook a b1 was incorrect from me, another inaccuracy. I see, I should have played bishop takes c6. And they would take me, or they take my rook. And that way we'd actually transpose to the game in a way, where they would, actually they wouldn't do that, would they? Because I take their rook. Okay, so they would play rook b8. And then when I take their rook, they can't take my rook because of bishop c7. So we would actually get that exchange, and then we might transpose into the same thing as the game, with something like this. But with my rook a b1, that gives black more options. So what should black do here? a4, try and get rid of my knight. Then knight c5 anyway. a3, and I can't use my rook on the b file. And if I trade the bishop for the knight, I'm assuming that black has enough here. Maybe if I take the knight, they take me. It still looks really horrible for black to play this. But potentially they have stuff like pawn takes b2 in the a2 in the future. What's the evaluation here? It's plus, yeah, it's +2, so I should still be reasonably comfortable in this line. And I can actually trade because their pawn goes onto a file where the promotion square is not guarded by the bishop. So I'm in absolutely no trouble at all. I would win their rook, and as a safety move, as like a prophylactic idea, I would play my bishop around and put it on a1, where I am never going to get surprised by a promotion, and then I'll use my rook to overpower their bishop and win the game. So with their bishop f6, that was, I think, the end of the game, really, because this plan of pushing my passed pawn. Okay, b8, yeah, bishop takes, rook takes, knight c5. Maybe I lost a little bit of my advantage, but to be honest, it looked like everything won. So yeah, I didn't play perfect. I did miss a couple of things, made the odd inaccuracy. Yeah, 2 inaccuracies. But I outplayed my opponent, who made several mistakes. Anyway, hope you got something from that video. I jumped from 23.30 to 23.37. Not the biggest jump in the world, but every little helps. I'm now only 63 points from being at the goal of 2400 in Blitz. And I will see you in the next video.